The way technology generally goes is things get better and then they get cheaper. And the reason for that is brands invest a lot of money into R&D in their new flagship cameras. And then once those R&D costs have been recouped, now they can rewrap that same technology into their newer cameras, keeping the costs down, all the while maintaining most of the technological advances. Such is the case with the new Fujifilm GFX50S II, the next in line of the 51.4 megapixel larger than full frame format cameras. Borrowing much of the tech developed in the past couple of years for the GFX medium format line, but making the cost more accessible than ever. Despite the success of the GFX100 and the 100S, a lot of photographers are still choosing to go with the GFX50 because they don't really want to deal with those large 100 megapixel files, and instead are more interested in the aesthetics of a larger format sensor. And in that way, the 50S and now the 50S II are really ideal working medium format cameras, but it's not without its challenges. So let's get into that. Today we're going to discuss the upgrades in this model and who this camera is and isn't for. But first, let's dive into a quick update roundup. There are 79 upgrades to this model, but here are a few that I think you'll likely care about. The camera now takes on the same quad-core CPU X Processor 4 found in the other GFX100 cameras, moving away from the X Processor Pro. This means better eye detect autofocus, faster autofocus times, and reduced Evf Blackout. A redesigned shutter mechanism buys the camera better stability, landing in at an impressive 6.5 stops, beating out the new 100 by half a stop and the original 100 by a full stop of stability. The GFX50S also sports a new nostalgic negative film simulation based on American New Color, which adds cyan skies, rich shadow color, and a slight amber color cast. So first up, here are the things that worked well with this camera. First up is the more compact Pro mirrorless style body. They've just used the body of the new 100S, which is close to the same size as most pro-level mirrorless cameras, and just as easy to operate. The IBIS is absolutely fantastic. It is by far the best performing across all GFX cameras, and with the 35mm lens, I can reliably shoot handheld at 1/8 of a second, or sometimes even 1/4 of a second. Now, this will all change depending on your focal length and the lens that you choose. And as I previously mentioned, the camera is even easier to use. That is because they've dropped the top dials in favor of the traditional command dials. It's significantly faster to work with. Both dials are also pressable, and that's going to allow you to cycle through all different uses. The pixel size on the 50S II is a very large 5.3 microns, which beats the Canon R5 by a micron and the Sony a7R4 by nearly 2. All of this should offer absolutely outstanding low-light performance, and as you can see, at 6400 ISO, my photos were astonishingly clean. And finally, I really like the nostalgic negative film simulation. It's become my overall favorite film setting if I don't plan on doing too much post-processing. Nice, warm, natural tones, and a step away from Fuji's usually punchy and cool film simulations. Alright, so now it's time for me to address some of the challenges that I have with this camera. If you've been following our channel and watched any of our videos, you're going to know that I'm a pretty big fan of the GFX system overall. But to be perfectly honest, the only camera in this entire lineup that really blew me away was the original GFX100. The 100S and the 50S II feel a little bit underpowered compared to the GFX100. Now, this shouldn't surprise anybody because the 50S II is less than half the price of the GFX100, and that includes their brand new 35-70 kit lens. While the new slender S-series cameras are easier to shoot with, the 50S II retains the contrast detection of the original 50S, while the other GFX cameras use the much more responsive phase detection. The advantage is going to be in accuracy in the absence of speed. Still, I find the S-series models to not be very accurate. In fact, I got so frustrated on a recent shoot that I ended up shooting a lot with manual focus.
Come on, focus. Why are you going there?
My tips with Anna showed that if you have it on continuous shooting, the cameras do seem to track better, but contrast detection works by hunting for focus, so it's still not as responsive as face detection. All this means is that I don't really recommend the GFX50S II to be your only camera. It's not really great in any situation where the subject is going to move around the scene in any sort of brisk way. Now that being said, in recent videos we have talked about how autofocus on any camera system takes quite a long time to master, and up to a year in some cases. So don't take my examples and my experience as absolute fact. That being said though, I have used every GFX camera in the last 2 years quite a bit, and I'm getting used to their intricacies, and I can tell just in my heart that the 50S II and the 100S aren't responsive nearly as much as the 100 is, and it really limits what you can do with this camera. Now, if you are a Fuji fan, then my suggestion might be to buy the 50S II for landscape, architecture, still life, or studio portraits, but then also buy the X-T4 for everything else. They use the exact same batteries, same media, and the X-T4 is lightning fast. However, if you can't afford it, I think the better pairing is the GFX100S and the X-T4 because you get both the 16-bit color with the 100 and phase detection autofocus. Fujifilm is marketing this camera to fine art photography students, small studios, portrait, wedding, and landscape photographers. Now, if you do landscape or fine art, I think you're going to be very happy with this camera. It gives you everything you need. But if you have the type of photography where subjects are moving around sort of erratically, like journalism, events, editorial, then I think this is a good second body choice if you want that medium format look, all the while you still have your faster camera body with you at the same time. And, you know, I'm saying this, but at the same time, I have to remember that this is remarkable technology in that the advancement with this 50S II over the original 50 is huge. It's a much faster camera. It is much more compact, and it's much more attractive to use over that somewhat now clunky 50S. So it's very impressive on that way. It just is not a dual camera, and it never really set out to be. So if you know how you want to use this camera, it will perform very well in those situations and at a price that really is unprecedented. We haven't seen before. So a very impressive product if you work within its limitations. And that's it for me. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more videos like this and comment in the comment section below. What do you think about this camera? Do you think it's going to be a win for Fuji? Are you interested in it? I'd like to hear your thoughts. For me, that's it. Good night. Goodbye.